So you see here the game against Dmitry Gurevich.
Dmitry Gurevich, yeah. He was a Soviet player. Well, he was representing the United States. He was one of the best young players in that time. And we played a very sharp line, both, because he needed to try to win also. I mean, if he could win, he could win the tournament, you know.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
So he had also many points.
Yeah, it was decisive game, last round, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to try to win with black, which was very difficult against a very talented grandmaster, and he was very well prepared, theoretically also. So we played one of the sharpest lines of King's Indian or the Benoni, the 4 pawns, you know, the so-called 4 pawns line, you know, for white, you see.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be very, very careful with black because you can lose very quickly in this line with black, you know, if you don't move the best moves all the time, you know. So, okay, the move order again, very important. Knight f3, and now a6 tries to force you to play the line from our game because in some positions, black wants to come to the Volga gambit or the Benko gambit with black, giving you the pawn for initiative immediately with b5. So he stops this idea with a4, and now after a4 we come back to the normal line by playing e6. Now bishop e2, we take in d5, he took with c. If he takes with e pawn, is more or less even the position after bishop f5 and knight e4. So it's okay, more or less even. No, knight e4 with black, castle and knight e4. And black has a normal position, no problem. So he took, yeah, here is okay. So he takes back, of course, with the pawn, c pawn. And now bishop g4, h3, you take in f3, he takes a knight bd7. So finally, he has the 2 bishops, but we could develop all our pieces, and we have control on the central squares. The game is more or less even. But if he plays castle, for instance, or bishop e3, the game theory, everything is theory, the game is balanced and more or less even. But now he played a very sharp move, g4. That attacks very quickly, and now you have to be very, very careful because if you give too much space, you in some positions you lack some moves and you are really suffocated. I mean, asphyxiation with black, you see. So you have to be very careful. H6 is the best move. It's a line recommended by Tal for black, you know.
The idea being to...
I mean, you have to control the black squares all the time. You'll see later on how we play the game. And control of the black squares is most important in this kind of position. That keeps a little bit the balance, and you have always a good counterplay for black, you see. But you have to play only like this, h6, and later on after h4, knight h7, you see. Why is so important? Later on we'll see why, you see. Again, you keep control on the g5 square, and later on, if possible, you play yourself the move g5, even if it looks a little bit crazy for black, you know, because you open the line. Yeah. So, okay. And now this is the counterplay. c4 with the idea to put the knight in c5, threatening knight c5, d3 check. This is the good idea for black, you know. But it's move by move all the time, you know. So, okay, he played bishop e3, rook c8, no? Rook c8, bishop d4. Now, if you trade immediately the bishop in d4, white has more space, even if he gives you the pawn. For instance, you take in d4, which is not too good, you know. He plays queen takes d4. After queen b6, he has more space again. And if you play immediately knight c5, he can play g5 and he can open the game. And that is very good for white, you know. Even if he gives you the exchange or something is very dangerous, you know, in this kind of position. Okay, so I told you, move by move, knight c5, very important. Now you take, he takes in g7, but you have time to give a check in d3. That is most important, to give the check in d3. You see? Now everything is forced again. King g3, king takes g7. Okay, now as a result, we have this position. Black could defend very well he has very good counterplay, but white still has more space. You have to be careful. He prepares, of course, by playing queen d2. And he wants to put the position like this, if you give him the possibility, g5, rook h2, rook h1. And you have no counterplay at all. In one moment, he opens the game completely by playing h5, and very unclear and very dangerous. So you have to be prepared for a very tactical struggle here, by playing yourself the move g5, as I told you before, which is most unusual, you see.
G5.
G5. I mean, you accept to open the position where he has all the pieces, you see. Yeah.
It's true. It's
But now it's also move by move. He can open the position, but it's not clear at all, So he has to play knight e2, queen f6. Okay, you have another piece coming into defense. Now he has to open. Now he has to take in g5. I took, and rook h5. Now everything is forced again because you can try to trade some pieces in f4. Now you have to take twice in f4. He takes, you take, king takes, and now the most important move is f6. f6, you have now time to put the knight in a very good position in g5. That defends everything with the knight in g5.
No, this square is a key square.
Is a key square because if he has time, he had one move, he had time to play rook h1, everything was very good for white, because now the pawn from c4 was weak, and all the endgames after rook h8, for instance, or something, the endgames are much better for white, and he had time to play for win. Okay, now after f6, rook h1, knight g5, he has to be very careful because now is the threat, immediate threat c3 for black. If he didn't play e5, black wanted to play first immediately c3. He opens the position for him, attacking immediately in f3. He takes the line and has also the possibility to give you a check later on after e5. So again, it's move by move, and here he is the last hope. He tries to open the position. Now, if you take with f, you never win. You are worse, probably you are lost here with black. If you take with f, because he has time to lose the knight. You took in f3, and after rook h7 check, you are lost. You can resign. You lose at least a rook. So again, you have to be very careful. You have to take with the pawn. And now, okay, he gives you the bishop. Okay, you can't take the bishop because you are almost mated here. So, c3, the best move. And now again, the best move for white. He doesn't look the bishop from f3. He continues the idea. He continues the rook h6. Very big time trouble for both. Very dangerous position for both. Now, okay, we have to play for win, like in casino, move by move, you see. So, okay, c2. Maybe it was even better to take in b2, but in very big time trouble, c2 is better because you want to push the pawn immediately to make a queen. So now, okay, d6, the last hope. So after d6, c1, queen, rook g6 check, king f7, rook takes f1, and now the best move is to take the bishop, not the rook. If you take the rook, it's not clear at all what happens, even with the exchange down. But he has a good possibility because he has two passed pawns in d6 and g4, and is most unclear, And now he's winning for black, but you have to win this winning position in very big time trouble.
Why the bishop?
Because now you have piece up with black, you see.
Okay. And
now you have piece up, and he has to do something. Okay, now he takes in f6, the only move. Now, king g7, and again, the only move is to take in f8. Check, and now king e6, only in e6, because if he goes back, then he loses a tempo, very important tempo. His the only hope is to have the king very quickly there, very near of the pawn from d6, the only possibility. Now check, king g6, and I told you before, very big time trouble. Here black is completely winning, but very big time trouble. We are arriving time control here. So knight g5 check, king d5, rook f2. Now, again, very clear. If we had already the control here, white could resign, but we have still some moves to do, and it's not clear at all because everybody could lose in time trouble, in the last moment. So after rook f2, he took in b7. I gave check. He played king c6, the only move. And now black could win immediately by playing knight f7. After knight f7, white is lost immediately because the only move is d7. And after knight e5 check, he can resign. So here in this position, knight f7 wins by force in one move. Yeah.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I told you I was in very big time trouble, and I played some other moves which doesn't win immediately and gives still a small hope. King f6, and after king f6, after again even here probably knight f7 wins. The same idea,
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a little bit different because he had a g5 check in here even. But the position is winning in any case. Yeah. So, okay, I took in b2, a small mistake. Taking in b2 is a small mistake. And here he played rook e8. And, okay, now here is a different kind of position. It's not immediately winning in one move. So, again, you have to realize the advantage. You have to win a winning position again, you see. Okay, rook c2 check, king b6, knight e6. G5 check, the last hope, you see. G5 check in very big tantrum is a dangerous move like this because you can have a blackout like this in the last moment, So, of course, probably knight takes G5 wins because you still have a pawn or free pawn and E4. After D7, you can control the square D8 after knight F7, But I wasn't sure, so therefore I played king F5 after G5 check, no?
Yes.
Yeah, and now G6. Okay, and after knight G6, rook E2, fortunately enough, black still wins, here. But, compared with the idea from before, not so easy, not in one move, you see. So now he played... So I gave check. Now king d7, he had probably the idea that white escaped somehow and he has a good chance to try to play himself, So after knight c5 check, he came to e7, and now it's completely different because now you have time to take. And when he pins you with rook c8, with the idea to play later on e3, d7, now you have time to push yourself. E3, and that wins, E3 now is forced. He resigned here because after E3, D7, E2, we are both make a queen, but he's mate afterwards by force, In such kind of position, the player who has the possibility to give the first check wins by force, You give mate by force. So, for instance, he makes a queen, E1 check first, and now where you go with the king? Only f8, for instance, probably, no? And now you lose the queen by force with knight e6 check, or you can play to win immediately by rook f2 check. And now king g8, queen e6 check and mate, Everything forced. So he resigned finally, very, very unclear game until the end.
Very close, yes.
Until the end, very close like this. And I was able to win the third time in a row the US Championship. That was really a record, by this time. And immediately after this game, I had the third rating, worldwide, like this, the third rating.
You became number 3 on the rating.
I became number 3 in the world. I mean, my rating there in that moment, controlled by Professor Elo himself, he made the system, the Elo system. It was something like 2,663 or something like this. It was something similar now with 2,850, 15, 20, something like second in the world or something like, right now, you see, something very, very high. Well, it was a real record, but it happened. This is good that could happen for for a period like this. Well, it was really a performance. To win 3 times in a row was, impressive, and it was okay. I mean,
Coming all the way from Romania.
yeah,
In
all
US
the way. Yeah,
in that time.
yeah. All the way.
So this elo is done by
By Professor Elo. Well, they had to do something to control a little bit, 'cause with so many players in the world. We have
to have a hierarchy.
It was the only possibility to have something like this. But you could have also some mistakes, because if they take some points without any explanation, or you give too many points without any explanation, that, it's not good for the rule, like this.
Yeah.
Finally, they gave also in some other tournaments, they gave 100 points more for the women to try to equalize a little bit, because it was clear that men were better than women. Anyway, it was the difference was too big, and they gave to every strong woman 100 points more. They tried to equalize a little bit more, but without explanation why you give 100 points. So, okay, now the situation is like this, the normal situation right now. Right now we have a few players, women players, they play very well, even, the difference still exists. The men are better even now, but the difference is not as big as before. Before, it was probably only one player in the world, Judith Porgar, or her sister also, Zsuzsa Porgar, they played very well. Ciburdanidze and Gaprindashvili, 4 players in the whole world. They played, like men, you see, like this. Now you have maybe 20, 30 players, Chinese and from India, some people, Russia, and so on.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a problem. You have to do this with Elo. It was the only possibility to try to control a little bit the situation. The only possibility.
Anyway, coming back to the game, very nice.
The game was excellent, of course, but very sharp. In any moment you could have a surprise like this.
Surprise.
You could win, you could lose. In any position was different. You see.
Luckily or not luckily.
Luckily, okay, we had the result finally.
You win the third time the US champion.
The US championship. Yes.
Thank you for the sharing, Mr. Gheorghiu.
You are.